My name is Mike Garlia.
And I'm Steve Jones.
When Steps, the Backstreet Boys and Westlife dominated the pop charts, we decided to write a script.
Based on our experiences as holiday entertainers.
It's sat in an attic for the last 16 years. How terrible is the writing? How awful will the acting be?
Only you can help us decide.
This is Bad Scripts.
Hello again, and welcome to another special Bad Scripts episode. We've now done 2 whole Last Resort scripts. So, without further ado, I know you're all waiting to hear his voice. Let me introduce to you once again the infallible, the unmistakable, the definitely not from the Northeast, Mr. Mike Garlia. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Steve. What is the definition of infallible?
I don't know. For me, it's like you can't be fouled. You are infallible. you. It's very difficult.
I keep coming back. What you say is I'm resilient, and I keep coming back, despite the fact that I have, ridiculed myself on numerous occasions throughout this podcast and revealed many stories that even my co-workers and my family were not aware of. Is that what you mean?
I think that's fair to say. I mean, I didn't know about the gay tamborining. I mean, that was a whole new lesson for me, learned after 20 odd years of friendship. So I think that's
it just goes to show. I think secrets are a good thing in a relationship, Steve. What's your view on that? Some things.
I think the ladies' underwear bit, that was probably a bit too far, but it's nice to have that element of surprise.
The ladies' underwear.
You know that you wear the frilly ones.
The thongs.
Yeah,
you're talking about thongs.
The mankinis and the.
Black Lace is not just a band; it's a way of life, Steve. Okay.
I know that you only exclusively wear Homer Simpson torn boxer shorts. That's it. Just those.
Okay, so we know a few people that are friends of ours that listen to these podcasts. Steve, how many messages did you get over that episode to go, is this true? How many did you get?
Several people asking about that, and people asking if we trimmed our toenails. So.
I just the thing you said about scuttling out the room and hearing the tip, it still makes me laugh to this day. Actually, it's a particular highlight of mine. But I also got messages from people going, "Were you making that up, or did you actually own Simpson pajamas? Simpson boxer shorts?" And I've had to come out and say, yes, I did. That was not a joke. Now, when you hear some of the stories and anecdotes, there's a vein of truth going through that because we wouldn't come on and we wouldn't do this if we were just making stuff up. I think there's some truth in it, as embarrassing as that may be. But also, I've had a few friends that have listened to it and said, Mike, back in the day when I was dating, those thoughts went through my head too. And, if I'm with a girl, and that's a guy thing. Guys don't talk about this stuff. They're like, yeah, you suddenly start worrying about things that are going, the oversights to grooming that you suddenly start worrying about as a younger man. And so I think it's good that we've started this movement.
I think this is honest, gentlemen, because we're only saying the things that other people have been too frightened to say. And like you say, the unwritten rules. Women tend to share more, but guys, we tend to be a bit more guarded about these things. But, educating people that it's okay. We've all been there. It's a shared experience. It's nothing to be ashamed of. We learn our lessons from these things. Oh, dear. But let's get on to what we're really doing here today, Mike. We're doing a little retrospective on Script 2 of The Last Resort. But also, for those of you that follow us on social media, you'll have noticed we put out a request for some questions and some feedback from people around what they've heard in the podcast so far. And you've all been great. Thank you so much for all of your questions. We've picked about 6 or 7 that we really wanted to answer. And if you've got any more out there and you want to answer and you don't get a response from what we give you now, do feel free to ask us on social media. We're on all the major channels out there, so please do fire away, and we'll do our best to answer any that we don't cover in today's podcast.
So, Steve, just before we get into the set of questions that we're going to be covering, and I'm really excited because I've not seen these questions yet. I'm so excited. If you remember the Brian episode, we had our wonderful guest Brian Garner from Be More Super. I pitched him the first episode. I'd like to do that again. I think it gives us a bit of a recap. It means I can talk through the treatment of episode 2. Do you think that would be appropriate to kind of sandwich that in right now before we go into the questions?
I think absolutely. Let's get that little refresh of what's happened since the end of season 1, episode 1 of the scripts, and episode 2 finishing. So, Mike, if you fire away and read to us the treatment, and I'm all ears.
I think I need to, given the confusion that we're having over seasons and episodes right now.
It is very confusing. Very confusing.
So just for any listener that hasn't listened to our other special, a treatment is a one-page synopsis of whatever that script is going to be. That's what the treatment does. It basically tells the whole story in one page, and that's exactly what I'm going to read right now. So sit comfortably, and I will try and do it justice. And if you've not heard the episodes yet, you might want to stop now.
Spoiler alert.
Episode 2 treatment. Episode 2 is set during the middle of the season. With social hierarchy decided in episode 1, episode 2 concentrates on character development and exploration. The camp coats are all settled in and nerves have dissipated. The arrival of a new up-and-coming boy band sends the ladies into a frenzy. The guys, while seemingly unperturbed, decided to create their own boy band in order to gain some pride and show everyone that they can do it. Kelly develops into a callous and cold-hearted woman, bent on getting her own way and whatever she wants, including several members of the visiting band. She dismisses the fling with Dan in the previous episode as nothing and is quite nasty in purveying it to him. Dan, dealt this blow, wades on through the swamp of life. Homophobic and downright daft at times, he somehow manages to Let me say that again. Homophobic and downright daft at times, he somehow manages to remain endearing, is a line I had never imagined myself saying. The visit of Donna's mother for her birthday celebrations is an embarrassment to her, especially considering their stark differences in character. Donna's initial interest in Dan is rekindled with a drunken peck at a party, which soon blossoms into a full-blown relationship, much to Dan's amazement and delight, in just 24 hours. Adam is now playing the helping hand to Sam as she deals with the breakdown of a relationship. There is an attraction between the two, but it seems likely never to be fulfilled. Adam and Robin take the new band seriously and work hard to choreograph routines for a show they think will be worthy of showing to the paying public. A new cast member arrives in the shape of Pete, a young, talented singer of Caribbean origin? Wait, he's Welsh, right?
Maybe we should read the treatment before we started reading the script.
We did say no spoilers. I'm so sorry, everyone. That's what it says in this one. But we're portraying him as a deep-voiced Welshman. He slots into the boy band perfectly, and there is an air of mystery surrounding him.
So mysterious that we didn't even know what part of the world he was from.
Well, or also that many lines. He just appears. I think he names Turdsky. That's all. Daisy helps out enthusiastically with the guy's image, much to the ever-pessimistic Wayne's amusement. Vladimir and his family are also up to their usual tricks, with Vlad hurting himself again and shocking the cast with a little surprise gift. It wasn't so little, though, was it? I mean, we portrayed it as a pretty big gift.
A massive steaming gift.
We see more strange guest antics in the talent contest and the arrival of Margaret, the resident nutjob, and a deadly mobility scooter.
Is
The introduction of
Sorry, is nutjob the politically correct term we use in these more woke times?
I don't think it is. I don't know. Maybe we can find a different name for it. I don't know. I think we had a lot of love for Margaret.
I think so.
But there we go. The introduction of Gary and Colin, two catering workers, showed the opinion of other members of staff towards the camp coats. The management remain a more elusive figure in episode 2, with minor appearances by Mark and Judy, whilst Alan and Kevin remain at head office, seen only as voices on the phone. Interesting.
Maybe we were planning on focusing on the phones as they were talking.
In summary, this episode encapsulates the essence of drive and the complexity of relationships within this close environment. So that's the treatment to episode 2. That's literally what would go out to production companies, and they read that and go, do I want to invest in this? Steve, I suppose the first question I'm going to ask you is, do you think what we've covered in season 2 lives up to that treatment, or the treatment lives up to the script? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it really... It's the emotion in that you don't get from that treatment. You don't feel the joy, the romance, the will they, won't they. I think it's very difficult to purvey because, like we've said, this is very much about the development of those relationships and the moving forward, but it isn't a hugely eventful element of the script. So it's very difficult to get that into a treatment or elevator pitch at that point, I think.
Well, I mean, there's a few things we should cover. So the first, but you wanted to cover one point at the very beginning. So you made a very specific note on that. What was it you wanted to cover?
Now, that was a long time ago, so trying to ask me to remember that over this period of time may be more challenging. I think.
What you mean? That was like 2.5 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's long enough for me to have forgotten. They don't call me Goldfish Jones for no reason. So what were we talking about?
So we're talking about the guys, unperturbed, decide to create their own boy band to regain some pride. And you said, yeah, that's something we should talk about.
Yeah, so I think, and you'll probably agree with me on this, he says, worrying now that you won't, that when, similar to our experience, when you're in that micro climate on resort and there's a camp coat, you're kind of a little celebrity. All the people that come on holiday after sort of the first day or two, they all know who you are. You're very much the centre of attention. The guys have got used to this by the start of the second episode script. And suddenly this whole new level of celebrity appears in terms of this boy band. And they're not the centre of attention. They're not the one that all the girls are going to see, and they're feeling it. They're feeling slightly neglected or overlooked and wanting to regain their place at the top of the social hierarchy. And I think that I don't think that's the full stimulation for why all of them are doing it, but I think it's a motivator to speed up that development.
You see, so let's be realistic about this. How long in the script was the boy band there? They weren't residents, was they? They were there for one night, right?
Yeah, they did one night it was a gig, wasn't it? They came, they performed.
It was a gig. It was just, so these boys are so vulnerable that a one night gig changes the trajectory of what they're thinking and makes them feel like they lose their pride because the girls are all in for these. I mean, that's fiction. It's got to be fiction.
It's a reality check, though. It's that sense of, oh wow, we're not as great as we think we are, actually there's more to attain here. There's more for us to do. And seeing how excited people got about this visiting boy band made them go, I want a piece of that. I want a slice of that. And I'm going to work hard to get it.
I think that's it, Steve. I think it's pure ego. It is. If I can go on a stage and sing a song and do a bit of a nice dance routine with some other lads and have all these girls screaming at me, it's pure ego. So it's not really about pride. It's more about ego, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's another thing I want to move on to, and that is Kelly develops into a callous and cold-hearted woman. I don't feel that Kelly is callous and cold-hearted. I don't know quite what that means. What's your takeaway on that?
So to me, the reflection on that tends to be around the way she gossips around things. How they develop with Sam, when she says that Adam leaves Sam's room, and she's gossiping about that in reception so everybody can hear, and then she's all nice to people's face, but then she's being quite bitchy about other people behind their backs. She's quite bitchy about Dan, but she's annoyed about what he does with about him going off with Donna. Like, I don't want him, but how dare he move on? There's something about her that feels a bit cold, or feels a bit colder at this point.
Do you know what I think? Of all the female characters we've written in this script, she's the one who's most well-rounded.
I think she's the one who's most like us.
What do you say? No, right. Just for the record, no, I have to cover this. Just for the record, and to go back to treatment, I did not get my own way with several members of a boy band. So that's on you, my friend.
Just the one, was it? Right.
Just the one. He was very special. He was very special.
Fantastic. Right. Well,
so, and then we've of course made some mistakes as well, and that is Pete. We didn't read the treatment. We did not realise that Pete was of. We also didn't realise that Pete was a young, talented singer of Caribbean origin. Until we read this, and I think that was a very uncomfortable moment just then.
Yeah.
Of going, oh, but I'm also glad that we didn't, because I'm not doing a Caribbean accent. I'm not, because
well, you heard in the last special, again, you heard my West Indian nurse. So I think it's a great idea that neither of us attempted that.
Agreed.
And let's not forget, when we wrote this with the thought that actors would portray these characters. That was the thought. It wasn't going to be us doing this. This was a thought of genuinely writing something to be produced as a television show. So there would have been a great young black actor in that role, and that would have been awesome.
Well, there we go. So, I'm sure we'll pivot back to the treatment as we get towards the end of the special. But I think it's time to move on, Steve.
I think it is, and we've got the questions here. So, Mike, I've collated these questions and I've not shared them with you, so that there's an element of surprise, and you can't study up on what your answers are going to be. We're going to put you on the spot. I'm going to answer them too. I've not researched anything. I've just picked these questions out so that we've got a little bit of variety, because obviously you get quite a few bits of repetition when you ask for updates.
We're going freestyle. We're going improvised. Is that what we're doing here?
So question number one, and you might be sweating about this one, because this one comes from...
I'm sweating already.
Yeah, it comes from Leanne in Lanarkshire. It's, I know that this script is semi-autobiographical, but are any of the characters based on you and Mike? Ooh, Michael. Did we base any of the characters on me and you? I'll let you answer first. You give your opinion.
Well, I think, look, we've always gone into this with an element of honesty. So I'd say yes and no.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
Did that? Oh, sorry. No. Oh, yeah, right. Okay. Sorry. Right. Okay. So yes, there's an element of you and I in all the characters, because we wrote them. I would say that there's no particular character in its in its entirety that's based on any one actual person, because we would never have done that, and I think we were a bit more respectful. There might be certain characteristics and personalities that filter more prominently in certain characters, but I would say that in terms of the characters themselves, if you listen to the special, you would have said that Brian was an inspiration behind Adam, and because Brian's a gentleman, he's a very nice guy, he's very kind, he's very giving. Not to mention that because I've got a different view about Adam, that I'm judging Brian for that, because I'm not. But I would say that there's probably there was no one that was really based on any one individual, because we built a lot of situations and circumstances and then fed them into the characters of which character will be most likely to get into this situation, and then built the attributes around that. What's your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, I agree with you on that bit. I mean, it's one of those situations where I think we were very aware of not to make any one character like one person, because I don't think it's fair. I mean, because there's a lot of comedic license been taken, a lot of artistic license taken with a lot of the situations that happened. And what we've done is taken several years of experience and condensed it down into and elaborated upon. And, all the anecdotes that we give that outside of the script, they're all 100% true. We are not making any of this up. There's no point in us making it up. And I think, the feedback that we've had on social media and things, the people enjoy that because there's that element of truth in there. And that's the same with the script. So there's an element of us in every character that...
the anecdotes are purely us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's everything that we've shared there is about me and you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would agree that... And I wouldn't feel comfortable going out there and saying any particular character is based on any particular person, because if anyone listens to it and thinks they associate with the character, we don't want to offend, because it's entertainment, and B, if you feel that a character is you, get in touch with us and let us know, because there is, we may have taken a situation or a story or a particular characteristic or an attribute, but we've not really built those characters, because we were, we wanted to be actors, and that's kind of what we wanted to do. So it would be silly to put ourselves into the story as we are, because that wouldn't be acting.
No. And I think, let's not forget that 90% of the time, most people are quite boring. And they have 10% of the time when they're really interesting. And what we've tried to do is take all of those 10% and put them into each character, so that we've got rounded individuals that people want to hear about.
Yeah, well, this covered one season of our experiences, Steve. So that was a pretty full-on season then, wasn't it?
Exactly.
With no similarity to people alive or not alive.
Any are coincidental. Okay, Mike, so that was question number 1. I think we've done our best to answer it as politically as we can. But Leanne did have a second question, so we're going to allow her...
So you be the conscience here, Steve, because you're very good at that. Did we answer the question or not?
I think we did. No is the technical answer, and I think we've elaborated on why, because then none of them are carbon copies of ourselves. There are elements of each of us in pretty much all of the characters, because that's how we've written them, and that's how we gave them heart.
And my sweater meter is up to a 4 right now, so...
Towel dab time. So yeah, as I was saying, Leanne actually provided a second question. And Leanne is one of our super fans.
Hello, Leanne. Thank you for being such an avid listener of our little ditty.
She has the second question, so I've said yes. We will allow it. We will let it go. We will give you a second question. And she wants to know, who are your favourite characters in the script?
Oh, good question.
It's like asking which of your children you prefer. Ooh.
Well, Steve, I answered the last one. I think you should lead with this one.
Ooh. It's a difficult one for me, this. There's a couple of characters I really like. I don't think I've got a specific favourite, because, like I say, it is a little bit like what's your favourite child? And, you know, no parent in good honesty is ever going to, at least not on a podcast, announce it. They might think it from time to time. I think I enjoyed writing for Dan because Dan is cheeky and he says stuff that perhaps other people are thinking, but they just leave to their internal monologue. I like Wayne because he is brutally honest to himself from himself. You know, it might not be the truth to everybody else, but in his mind, he speaks his mind. He's honest. He tells you how it is. So those two for me are the ones that I have enjoyed delivering and enjoyed writing for. What about you, Mike?
Are you going to pick a favourite from it? Because the question is, who is your favourite character? So if you're going to pick one from the script, who would that be?
You're a taskmaster. You really are. I think I would have to say Dan because I think he's involved in so much of the drama that happens throughout the script, and he goes on a little bit of a journey from the beginning to where he gets to. I think I've enjoyed his development the most. What about you?
Well, like you, I have two as well. I have one who I enjoy playing the most and one who I enjoy the most, as in my favourite character. So the person I enjoy playing the most is Judy, just because I quite like her directness and the smoky little voice that I give her there. And she's based on a few people that we've known.
Yeah.
And I just love playing her because she's so no nonsense, and I enjoy that. But I would say my favourite character is the one that makes me laugh the most, other than your anecdotes and stories, Steve. And any guesses on who that person is?
I have a feeling it may be the ditzy secretary, Karen.
It is 100% Karen. She is not in it a lot, but she has some brilliant lines, and it's just the way you convey her and the way she's written, and I think the line they've run out of onions just really had me, and it's almost like a slogan for me now. So if something bad goes wrong in my day, I go, they've run out of onions. It's just a thing now that I think of. So I would say that Karen is my favourite character.
I do like Karen, I must admit. She is fun to play because I get to do a bit of a silly voice, and normally you're Mr. Accents, so it is nice for me to be able to do that. But I think maybe who let us know out there on the socials if you'd like to see a little bit of merchandise with they've run out of onions on it. Maybe a baseball cap, a badge, or a little T-shirt. Let us know if you'd like to own something like that, and we'll see what we can make happen.
It's always a bad day if you run out. Like, onions are the cornerstone of any great dish, and if you run out of onions, you're in real trouble.
So right.
So there's a double. I would say there's a double meaning behind that, really, isn't there?
There definitely is, and there's a stronger meaning to this with you, Mike. And I want to talk about that for a second. And I'm going to talk about, and I can see for the listeners out there, Michael is shaking his head at me because he knows where I'm going with this. Now, this must be probably a year after we wrote this script, and we were in a town in the north of England on a night out, quite drunk, been to a nightclub, just me and you, on our walking home, decided to pop into a nondescript takeaway to have a little bite to eat before we made our way back.
It was a burger van, Steve. It was a burger van.
It was a burger shop. I mean, let's not. They did have four walls. It wasn't on wheels, so let's allow them that. And I remember going in, and I think I can't remember when I ordered a kebab or something. It was suitably late at night to be able to have a doner kebab. And you said, "Could I have a burger?" And you stated with fresh onions. So the man toddled off, came back about 5 minutes later with a burger with some freshly cooked onions in it. And you turned to him and you said, "No, I wanted fresh onions." And he said, "They are fresh. I've just cooked them." And you were going, no, I want fresh onions. And he was looking at me like, who is this crazy guy you're with? What are you doing? and that's when it clocked with me. And I went, do you mean you want raw onion? And you were like, yeah, of course. Like we were all supposed to know that fresh didn't mean freshly cooked. It meant literally fresh out of the ground, wipe it and put it on my burger, please. So that drama happened for about 5 minutes. We left the joint, started to walk home, had a little giggle about that. And as we sort of got into the middle of the road, you opened your container and dropped your burger with your fresh onions all over the floor, all over the middle of the road. But you were so drunk that you picked it up, bits of tarmac, and mixed with raw onion, and put them back on your burger. Put it to your mouth and started chewing through, in a drunkenly unattractive way, through this feast of road and meat. And I just remember turning to you and saying, "Are you enjoying that grit burger, Mike?" And you just sort of looked up, smiled, and kept on chewing.
No comment, Your Honour. No, that is a true story, and I do remember that, and I do remember laughing a lot at the grit burger comment, and it was a matter of principle at that point that caused this man so much distress. I just felt like I had to eat it. But yeah, that was, you've never let me forget that to this day. So thank you for weirdly finding a link from Karen, They've Got No Onions, to that situation, Stephen, outing me once again. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I mean, I think I've seen people eat tarmac before, but normally it's coming off a motorbike. So to actually do it by choice, I think that's just very brave. So well done.
It could have been worse. I've seen, how many videos have you seen with guys drunk eating the actual polystyrene, casing of it all? So it could have been worse. It could have been way, way worse.
Okay, let's move on to another question then. This one is coming from Brona. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And she's from Salford. Brona says, what other jobs could you see the characters doing if they weren't on resort? Ooh.
Sausage roll factory. Every single one of them.
All of them. That would be it'd be a bit like a Carry On film where you take all the same characters and put them into a completely different scenario, and they could matron a little bit in the sausage roll factory. I wonder if.
So do we? How do we answer this then? I mean, that's pretty wide. And thanks, Brona, for your question. That's pretty wide-reaching. So do we talk about some of the main characters and where we think they may have been working?
I think camp coats only at this point. I think we'll leave everybody else to their devices. So let me say to you then. I'll name a character, and I think you come up with what you think they'll be doing. So
okay.
Let's say Robin first of all. What do you think Robin would do if he wasn't on resort at Camp Holidays?
Clothing boutique.
You think he'd be a clothing boutique?
I think he'd be in one of these kind of fringy clothing boutique type stores where you can buy really tight T-shirts that you can't find in, like non-top man kind of high-end high street stuff. This little boutique shop where you can buy like really strange shirt, like see-through shirts and stuff like that.
So, well, that's very specific. Thank you for that. You mean the sort of places we used to buy shirts when we were that age?
100%. I spent a lot of money on them as well. That was just like literally a Tesco plastic bag that had been recycled but turned into a like grey shirt.
I seem to have one that looked like a Sports Direct bag with a toggle on it.
I think there's a picture of you wearing that shirt, Steve.
And if people are good, and if we get a couple of requests, we might actually put photos up of those shiny shirts. Let's have a think then. Let's have a look at one of the girls. What about Kelly? What would Kelly be doing if she wasn't on resort?
I see her working in a body type shop. So, one of those fragrance type places.
Like the body shop?
like the that's the name. But like semi-chem or something like that, like kind of like a high street retail, making her way. I think she'd probably come out of college. She's really ambitious, but I see her being in the high street and then in the evenings working behind a bar.
See, I see her getting out the back of people carriers that boy bands have been in, possibly.
She definitely worked in a bar because she asked for a martini and lemonade, and only bar people know that drink.
But that was Sam that drank that. She had
This is true.
a snake bite in black.
100% behind a bar. So semi-chem during the day and behind a bar in the evening.
Fantastic. All right then. What about Dan the man? What's Dan doing now? He's not on resort. He didn't get the job. He shouldn't have got the job in the first place. So what if they'd never mixed up the applications and Dan didn't get the job? What would Dan be up to?
Dan would be down on or about Piccadilly Gardens in Manchester. Yep. He would be selling bootleg DVDs from his mate Damo. That's what Dan was doing. Because he said it as well, so I think that's genuinely what he did. I think Dan's a bit of a wheeler dealer, and he just makes his money that way, kind of on the side, selling them to dodgy DVD, like video owners and stuff like that, walking up and just selling them on. That's what I see Dan doing. So I'm going to ask you a question now, Steve. I'm going to throw some characters at you.
Ooh.
Adam.
Well, we know that Adam had at one point worked with his dad as sort of a labourer for his dad's building firm. I think he'd be doing something. I think he'd be working behind a bar, maybe. I think he'd possibly have waited a little bit too. I think he'd be drifting between jobs, trying to find himself, trying to find what is him. I'm not sure he'd have that. He never talks about his real ambition in the script. We don't really know what drives him, so I feel like he'd be a bit of a drifter, looking for his focus. But I'm not sure he knows what it is. I'm not sure he knows what he is, and I think throughout this, he's looking to find himself, and I don't think he has. So I think that he would do something that would be very service-led, very much. It would probably be sort of a minimum wage job that he's doing to just get by.
I think he does part-time kids' magic shows for parties.
Yeah, you think so? You think he's a...
Yeah, definitely.
Does the magic shows? Yeah. I mean, he could be doing some Magic Mike shows with those abs. I mean, there's a possibility that they're getting out if they're glistening.
They are always glistening. They never stop. They never stop.
They're perpetually moist, I think the term is.
So a couple more then. Donna. What do you think Donna was doing before she joined the cast? Very quiet. If you remember in audition, she's very silent. She doesn't really want to talk a lot. What do you think?
I think she washed hair. I think her mum runs a salon, and I think she would shampoo the hair for her mum at the salon. I think it would keep her quiet. She would have a little chat to the ladies. She would look after the Blue Rinse Brigade, while her mum would be, like acting as the stylist and doing the whole Essex girl bit.
Love it. And Welsh Caribbean Pete.
We will not live that down, I'm sure. So I think that Pete, I think Pete sounds to me like, he's got a sense of humor. I think he's a clever guy. And I think although his accent's quite slow and, methodical, I think he's really intelligent. I think he would actually work in marketing. I think he's got quite a keen eye and a sense of humor. And I think he would be a marketing executive.
He was a student. Come on, he's got student written all over him.
I don't know. I think he's got more to him. I think he's one of these guys that's going, I'm just going to do that because I want to do it. I've seen an opportunity. I'm just going to do it, and he's jumped on it.
One of these characters are a BTEC performing arts at a local college.
That was you, wasn't it, Mike? I thought
All right,
we said
and
it wasn't based on anybody we knew.
And the last character, and maybe this last character is the BTEC Performing Arts, and that's Sam. So we know that we already know she worked in a supermarket.
So yeah,
But
I mean,
what would she do if she didn't get a job?
So I know, she may well have studied, but I think as a job, even if it was part-time, I think maybe she would be. I think I could see her being an usher at a cinema, working in the cinema, just getting by. She's enjoying the sort of the Hollywood thing. She's got ambitions to be a performer, but she's around movies. She's around things she enjoys. So yeah, I think an usher in a movie theater would be something she'd probably get up to.
That's like that is literally like my dream job. Have you ever been an usher in a cinema before? Have you ever?
I did.
You have?
I did. Well, I did a little bit of ushering, but mainly I worked on the ice cream counter at a big cinema when I was 16 years old. But,
wow. There's been 2 jobs I've never ever been able to get. One, usher in a cinema to watch free movies, and I love movies, as you know. And the second one is pantomime. Never ever been able to get pantomime or book a pantomime gig. Don't know why. Just my widow twanky just seems to fall flat every single time. But the working as an usher in a cinema was a dream job for me, but just could never get it.
So if anybody out there would like to cast myself and Mike in the next pantomime, then do feel free to approach us. Also, if anybody runs a cinema out there and they'd like to fix it for Mike to be an usher for a day, then please also get in touch.
Thank you. Thank you for.
I think we leave that there. Yeah, we don't need to mention any names there.
And and if anyone wants to book us for any, public theatre productions of Why Drugs Are Bad,
just say no.
Please do.
Just say no.
Just say no
to us and to the drugs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next question.
Move on to another question. Okay, we got a question here coming in. Katie in Mansfield has asked, "What are you going to do when Last Resort is finished?" I'm assuming she means with the podcast. What we're going to do?
Oh, next. Not in life.
Yeah,
right?
I mean when the Last Resort
right. Okay, so
has finished, what are we going to do?
So where we take bad script. Well, I think we spoke about this in the episode with Brian, and I think you and I are in a bit of a crossroads in terms of what we do. Do you want my views on this, or do you want to offer a view, Steve?
I think we've written a few other things as well, and we'll come on to that in a bit, because there is another question that I've just seen that will touch on that, and I think we will. But I think there is an opportunity that there could be more. There might be more in us, but I don't want to say any more than that in terms of the Last Resort itself. But we've got some other scripts that we've written too. So there's some other stuff we could do. Or there's options with getting involved with some of our listenership and them helping us to create some new stories. And we can perform those too and, get stuff out there. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Well, I think it depends on the listeners in terms of what they would like to hear, because doing the podcast itself is a lot of fun. We never realized that people would want to listen to this. We honestly went into this thinking it'd just be me and you listening to this and no one else, and maybe a few family members and stuff. But the fact that we've created a little bit of momentum, people may not want to retire these characters just yet. And the truth of the matter is, we did write this all those years ago. We are reading it live for the very first time. We don't know what's coming up, but we also think that perhaps there's an opportunity to take these characters on a little bit further and perhaps write another off-season episode where we find out what happens, because there's quite a few different characters that we haven't explored their backgrounds. We don't know where they came from. We spoke about it a little bit just now, but that's just speculation. So I think there's perhaps, if people that are listening to this want to learn where these guys go when the season is over, there could be something there. Or you take a lucky dip and we do something different.
Great. Another question on the similar vein, but we're talking about Eleanor in Nottinghamshire has asked, if have you written anything else together? And if so, what made you record The Last Resort? What made us pick this one to record? So we have written other stuff. We've written stuff independently, and we've written stuff together. There's a few other different ones, and we can, we may approach those in the future. Mike, can you tell us why we chose to do Last Resort as our podcast?
Well, it's quite simple, actually, and that's because this was the first thing we ever really wrote together. And I'd done some other stuff before this. You'd done some other stuff before this, and then we kind of came together because there was a wonderful... We had a summer where we just kind of lived in each other's pockets, and it was the great coming together of, we have this idea, why don't we try and capture some of our experiences? And it was a chance attic... just being in the attic one day and coming across it in a bag and pulling it all out and seeing the disk drives. And we're talking, what they're called now?
Floppy disks?
Floppy disks, yes. Floppy arms and floppy disks. I came across it and I remember ringing you, Steve, and going, do you know what? I've just come across the treatment. I've come across these scripts. Wouldn't it be fun to read it again and see just how bad it is? And that was kind of where all this started. And that was, about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, Steve?
It was, and we sort of played with the idea of, what do we do with it? How are we going to do this? And are we just going to do it between ourselves, just going to sit on a call and talk? And then we discussed the idea of maybe doing a podcast. And what do we do with a podcast? And this seemed like the sort of thing we could possibly incorporate, but how are we going to do it? And we did discuss getting actors in to do the voices, and then we talk about it. We talked about possibly just talking through it. But I think then we hit on the idea eventually in the last few months to really go for it, record it, and to do it blind. This is not us flexing our acting muscles by any stretch of the imagination. We are reading live. We are teleprompting, essentially. We're doing our Good Morning Britain impression, and we are reading from a script as we are recording. So we don't know whether or not. It's essentially a table read in a TV or movie scenario. And I think that gives it a little bit of edge too, and there's a little bit of challenge for us there to try and inflect correctly and try and get things right. And I think our accents being as special as they are probably comes from that, because we don't know what we're going to say next, and it doesn't always come out the right way. But people have seemed to enjoy that. So if you have, thank you for listening in. And I think that's the reason why we chose Last Resort. We also felt it was something that they say, write what you know. And at that time, we were fresh out of there, and we knew that really well. We knew these scenarios, so it was easier to write things because that sense of reality and sense of experience added to the story and gave that realism to what we were writing. So for me, that was why we chose it. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Mike?
Yeah, and of course, we were asked another question, which we never captured, actually. This was quite early on, by one of our listeners in Australia who said, why lead with a derogatory title of bad scripts with a question mark? Because you're putting this idea in people's minds that it's already bad. And, we responded privately to this person and said, well, we don't know if it's any good, so we can't call it good scripts. But because we're reading it live and we're not reading ahead, there's no manipulation here. We're reading exactly what's written on the page. And, we would love to show you what's written on the page, and then you see our voices and exactly what we're reading. We had to lead with the fact that bad scripts just had kind of a nice ring to it. It just sounded funny to us. And if you're going in thinking it's going to be bad and it's better than that, then we may have lifted expectations a little bit. And I think what we found with Last Resort is we probably led with not the worst script in the world, and certainly not the better, because this was just a first draft. This was a first pass. We wrote this, and then we immediately went abroad directly afterwards, and it just went into attics and went away. And actually, Steve, I came across the letter from one of the production companies we sent it to. And in a future episode, I will read that letter in terms of how they let us down nice and gently with the show. So I actually have that, a very famous company that made a lot of very famous TV shows, because we only sent it to them and no one else. And now, all these years later, we're recording for the first time. So for me, Steve, addressing that question, it was the best script to lead with for a amateur podcast such as ourselves. And if you listen to episode 1, if you listen to episode 2 again, you kind of get a sense that we're finding our feet a little bit. We don't quite know what we're doing. We don't get the formula. But I think by episode 3, Steve and I had a bit of a conversation. Said, we've really got to portray these characters. We've got to play these characters in order to give it justice. And we stick with the same characters as well, because it gets confusing to everyone if we keep swapping people around, because Steve's talking, then I'm talking, then Steve's talking. It doesn't really work like that. So you'll hear big scenes where Steve is literally talking to himself, or big chunks where I'm talking to myself. We just had to connect to that. And that's where some of the accents came along, so we could offer some variation of characters.
And one thing for me is, because we're reading this and we haven't read it in 20 years, there's something in your brain that says, I wrote that when I was 23. Did I know enough then? Was my view of the world a little bit rosy? Are these characters going to be as well-rounded as they need to be? So is it a bad script on the sense of our experiences were so narrow in terms of what we've done, that it was bad writing? And I guess
100%.
That still is up for debate. It's up to the audience to decide in their own mind whether it is a bad script or a good script. I've enjoyed reading it. I've enjoyed portraying the characters, and you guys are still listening. So thank you so much for doing that. And, we will continue to strive to make sure that it isn't a bad script. Okay, another question. Ooh, we've got one coming, flown across the pond. Angela in Maine, in the good old US of A. Mike, if you could get any celebrity in the world to play some of your characters, who would you choose? Ooh.
That is a really obvious question, and one I haven't even considered. Oh, crikey, I need to think about this. So, are we going for the seniors in the cast or the younger?
Anybody you like. By the looks of it, there's
we're going to have to... Let's do this quick. Let's do it like a kind of shotgun style approach then, where we just call a character out. Okay. So I'll start with calling the character out, and you have to give an actor, and we'll go backwards and forwards, yeah? And the listeners can disagree or agree of whether they feel...
Are we saying anywhere in the world? Because, this is a very British holiday resort. I know we've got viewers and listeners all over the world that have been listening to the podcast, and thank you to the podcast world out there for joining us. Let's see. We can pick internationally from anybody, yeah?
Right character, right part, no budget.
No budget constraints.
No budget constraints whatsoever. Awesome. So, I'll just start firing out some characters then, shall I? Okay, so Alan, head of Camp Holidays.
I think I'd like Bill Nye. No, Bill Nighy. Bill Nye. What's his name? Bill Nighy? Nighy. Bill Nighy.
Nighy.
I think Bill Nighy would play Alan. I think he has the right level of command and authority that he would be able to pull that off.
Okay, Bill Nighy it is. Kevin. So someone who can play well off Bill Nighy. A brilliant actor.
It's going to be challenging. What about Kevin Whately, who played Lewis in Inspector Morse, and he was in Auf Wiedersehen Pet as well. I feel like he might be a nice actor. I mean, I know I'm not challenging the Hollywood elite here to be in this, but he just seemed like the sort of guy who would be not an underling, but like a vice president type role.
I like it. I like it. Okay, lovely. Mark then. So Mark, the entertainment's manager.
Ooh. So I would like to see Steve Carell play Mark.
Steve Carell.
Yeah, of The Office and 40-Year-Old Virgin fame. I would like to see him play Mark.
Do you not think he's a little bit kind of like to be in that environment with these younger people? I see Mark is kind of like mid-30s.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I didn't. I was thinking he was a little bit older than that. So, but again, you asked my opinion.
Yeah,
I think
fair enough. Steve Carell. I hope he's taking a note of this down because we're going to be reaching out to all these agents following this. All right, Wayne.
Now you could go down the obvious route there and go for someone like Ricky Gervais, because he would definitely be able to pull off the sarcasm levels. But let's think. What if we?
What about Stephen Merchant? Equally as sarcastic and funny.
I know, but he doesn't seem to have the same malice to him. He's too likable. What about if we go full on extreme and think like Hollywood actors now? What if we went for somebody who can play nasty? So who could play nasty well? Somebody who could be mean. What do you think, Mike? Who could we?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Right, so Wayne being that character. Do you know, I'm going to go with Jonah Hill for Wayne.
That's good, because do you know who'd come to my mind was Seth Rogen. So I think there's definitely a theme there around that level of sarcasm that Jonah Hill or Seth Rogen could definitely pull off. So good call.
Judy.
Now, I think for that voice, we've got to be knocking on Joanna Lumley's door, and we've got to be asking.
Old school. Exactly who I picture when I'm recording Judy's lines is Joanna Lumley. So 100%, you've got my vote on that one.
The way she carries herself, she is a consummate professional. She's in charge. I genuinely, I like you see her whenever you read those lines.
Daisy.
Aunt McPartland? No, I think maybe I who would I like to see play her? I think that's a really difficult one, because her accent's so strong. It's very difficult to imagine anybody who isn't a Geordie playing her.
Just any cast member from Geordie Shore.
You think though? So nobody from Biker Grove then? We can't.
What was the, Donna Air? Was it from Biker
there you
Grove?
Go. Donna Air.
Donna Air.
Let's say Donna
Donna
Air.
Air is Daisy.
I'm gonna go.
Now Karen's in her early 30s and is the ends receptionist.
So if I'm going to take an actor from any time now, and I think in terms of range and somebody who can play anybody, Meryl Streep. I think she can pull anything off. I think we go Meryl.
I think we're reaching with Meryl, to be honest with you. I think Karen is too small of a role for Meryl.
There are no small roles.
Meryl's a Judy. Meryl's not a Karen.
I think if we're getting a young Meryl, then she's definitely up for the role. And I think it's going to be her breakthrough role. I think she's going to smash it. It's a real character role.
I would say, I'm going to say this, given any time, Caroline Aherne for Karen.
Fantastic. The late, great Caroline Aherne, who is a fantastic actress and writer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, Cam Coates then. So we're talking younger generation now. Dan,
ooh. I'm thinking You know who I'm thinking? The guy from his name escapes me now. The guy from Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic. Taron Egerton. Taron Egerton. I can see him as Dan.
Cast. Yep, agreed. Kelly.
Kelly. I'm thinking Megan Fox. I don't know. Just
Can
the look
Megan
of her.
Fox do Scottish?
Can you? I mean, it's a question we're all asking.
Yes, that's
We
true.
can't
That's true.
Maybe she can, and maybe that's something we can check. Maybe there's a Scottish actress out there you want to suggest for the role. Who do you think?
Helen Mirren.
Lorraine Kelly. Lorraine Kelly could smash it.
Oh, come on. Lorraine's... You're saying that because she's Scottish, right? Not because she's right for the role. Kelly's a young, vibrant woman.
And so is Lorraine Kelly.
probably...
I will not have you badmouth Lorraine. She's a national institution.
Lorraine is an absolute treasure. She really is. However, not right for Kelly.
Okay. I'll let you off on that one.
Okay, Megan Fox we're going with then. All right, Adam.
Which celebrity's a big wet blanket? I don't know on this one. It's difficult, isn't it? He's a bit nondescript. He's got the abdominals and the dark hair.
It's got to be Zach. It's got to be Zac Efron.
Zac Efron. I think that's a fair.
Zac Efron.
That's a fair call.
Sam has piercing eyes and a beautiful smile.
Sam for me. Now, I don't know. I can't really put a picture in my mind of what Sam looks like. Is there anyone?
I do have an idea for Sam, actually.
Go on then.
So, if I was going to cast Sam, it's got to be Michelle Keegan.
Yeah, you think? Is that where you're going? I'd imagined her as more fair-haired, but
see, well, Michelle Keegan's also a good shout for Kelly as well.
Yeah, I reckon she could pull that off. So we could, she can fight it out with Megan Fox for those two roles.
Yeah. So no idea for Sam then. Kind of fair-haired.
Maybe Emma Watson then.
We're really stretching the budget right now.
You said there was no budget.
Emma Watson.
You said there was no budget. So there is no problem getting her there. She's on board and she is our Sam, or she's got to fight Michelle Keegan.
Well, if we can get Emma Watson, we might as well go for Margot Robbie. And
yeah, but Margot Robbie's that little bit older, like you say. So, or maybe they're about the same age actually now. That come to think of it, I think they probably are.
And Donna.
Ooh, now Donna's a difficult one because I think Donna, she's an understated beauty. I don't think she's not, she's not highly made up or anything. I think she's like the anti version of her mother. So she's very natural looking and pretty, and I'm trying to think who would really pull that off. Any ideas?
I would say Donna, casting for Donna.
I think maybe a redhead
actress.
For Donna.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just see her as being... like, she's got that little bit of
then,
fire in her, but there's nothing... It's bubbling under the surface.
It's got to be Karen Gillan then.
Okay, that's a good shout. Karen Gillan it is.
Okay.
Of Marvel and Doctor Who fame.
Well, that's right. You said redhead, and then I immediately thought Karen Gillan. So, Robin.
Ooh, Robin. Now,
for me, it's got to be. For me, do you know who I think would be good casting? Now I know he's not an actor, and it's a bit of an odd choice here, but it's got to be Martin Kemp's son.
Oh, Roman Kemp.
Roman Kemp, that's the guy.
See, I'd got an image of sort of a younger Rylan, maybe not quite as camp, but yeah, had an image of someone a little bit like that.
Okay, and Pete.
Pete's a difficult one, isn't he? I mean, I'm trying to think of an amazing actor that would be able to portray that. What about?
Well, if we go with Welsh, as a leading characteristic of Pete, because that's how we portrayed him.
But he's of Caribbean descent as well, so you kind of want to...
Only in the treatment.
Yeah.
Only in the treatment. It's changed in the casting because. So I think we should keep with how we portrayed it.
Okay.
So for me, Pete, would be quite a young and up and coming actor.
You want someone in there that's...
I have no idea.
Somebody who
his casting is open. He's as mysterious as the character himself.
Yeah. He's a difficult one, isn't he? Maybe we have to leave that. I tell you what, we're not going to make that decision. We're going to put it out to you, the listener. Let us know who you think should play Welshman Pete. Drop us a line and let us know, and we'll share it on our socials when you do.
And Vladimir will be played by Hugh Jackman, and there's no negotiation on that one because he lifts anything he's in. So.
That's fantastic, and he is the greatest showman. He has got a circus experience, so that works for me. Always happy to have the Jackman. So that's all the questions we had on there. Mike, has anything come to your mind that you want to sort of say to our listeners out there before we wrap up today, and anything you really want to talk about?
No, I just hope the listeners have enjoyed this episode. Again, I mean, we've done quite a few episodes, we've shared quite a few stories, we've had some guests on, and this is just a different variation of that show, and hopefully you've enjoyed it and you've learned a little bit more about Steve and I, or a little bit more about the show itself, because we spent more time talking about the show and the characters. I would love to be controversial and call out the controversial nature of the casting, and if you have a different view, or people that we haven't considered or thought about, or even just plain disagree with our casting, then please tell us, say, that'd be great. And it'd be great to follow that on with a more refined cast list where we've actually had a bit of an opportunity to talk about it properly without just coming at it off the cuff like this. So other than that, I think it's been very, very fun, and I'm just happy that people are listening.
So yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in once again. Next week, on the next episode, you'll be able to hear part 3 of the Last Resort script coming to your ears. Massive revelations in episode 10 that is going to rock the boat and drive you all crazy. So make sure you stay tuned. Once again, always drop us a line on the social media. We're there with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Make sure you keep in touch and you keep following, subscribing, and listening. Until next time, we'll see you for another episode of Bad Scripts. Bad Scripts was written and performed by Mike Garlia and Steve Jones, a Beach Tide production.